Many people really wonder who the worst president of all time is, but I know for a fact who that is, and it's Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was the most vile president of the United States. This is because of his wiping out Native Americans, his torturous slave ownership, and his lack of empathy towards certain races. March 4th, 1829 through March 4th, 1837, Andrew Jackson was the 7th president of the United States. He is also on the $20 bill, which I don't know why. He was known to be strong-willed, argumentative, and combative. He was also known for his brutal treatment towards slaves and forcing Indians from their lands, which caused thousands of deaths. During Jackson's Indian removal, he wanted to clear territories that he had newly acquired of the natives who were living there so that the white settlers could be able to claim that land, including the natural resources that the Indians had and had used. The Indian Removal Act had forced the displacement of Native Americans, including about 50,000 of them, which really opened up millions of acres of land to the white settlers. He referred to the natives as savages and said that it was for the best, and he also referred to them as my red children, which is enormously racist. Tens of thousands of Native Americans had died during the forced removals, which included the Trail of Tears. While Jackson was president, he signed about 70 Native American removal treaties. Jackson made Native Americans about go extinct. It was really like an ethnic cleansing. He transferred the Native Americans from the South, and it was mainly the Cherokees. His wanting to remove Native Americans started more than a decade before he became president. His top priority for presidency was the Native American removal, hence him wanting to start it more than a decade before he became president. He would try to get tribes to sell their land by barter or trade to be able to have some white settlers move in with the slaves. Andrew Jackson had stopped paying them annuities for them to be able to spend on their tribes. He knew that the white southern settlers that would harass them, the easier it would be to remove them. The removal of them was cruel and torturous. On December 6, 1830, he said, "It gives me pleasure to announce to Congress that the benevolent policy of the government steadily pursued for nearly 30 years in relation to the removal of the Indians beyond the white settlements is approaching to a happy consummation. Two important tribes have accepted the provision made for their removal at the last session of Congress, and it is believed that their example will induce the remaining tribes also to seek the same obvious advantages." So he had two of the Native American tribes agree to the removal to try and get the other tribes to agree so that he could just wipe out a whole ethnicity, which is insanely disgusting to me. Aside from his Indian Removal Act, his family and where he came from supports racial justice. Slavery was ultimately where his wealth came from, and he was in poverty until his ownership of slaves. He also would bring them to the White House as he was president. His plantation relied greatly on African American women, men, and children, and he went from owning 9 slaves when he owned his own hermitage to about 150 by the time he had died. He did not have any sort of education system or schooling system for the slaves he owned, and none of them could even write a word. He also encouraged his slaves to form family units. The slaves did not have names, for Andrew Jackson called them Surname Jackson. He beat his slaves, which included public whipping, especially to women. When the slaves would run away, he would find them and chain them up and whip them. A slave once ran away, and he put up an advertisement for offering $10 for every 100 lashes he would do. So that means he would literally tie the slave up with a chain, and every person who offered $10, he would lash the slave 100 times, which I feel like would kill someone. That is awful. In 1835, he worked to censor anti-slavery mailings that would come from the North who wanted to abolish slavery. He helped to ban the abolishment of slavery as well. Our current president, Donald Trump, had a picture of Jackson at the White House when he was inaugurated. Trump and Jackson really set a word for the common man and have similarities of their personality and the way they make changes during each of their presidencies. Jackson was the most vile president of the United States because of his Indian Removal Act, which was a plan for ethnic cleansing, and his owning while mistreatment and torture of slaves.